What's up, everybody? It's Young Cure with day 14 of the Fallout 4 Countdown Retrospective. We are a little more than halfway through the countdown, people, only 14 days to go. That's 2 weeks, we can do this. Today I've got yet another special countdown retrospective for you guys. I would like to take you all the way back to December 11th, 2013. On this date, website Kotaku leaked documents from a casting call confirming that Fallout 4 was real and that it would indeed take place in Boston. Now, something to keep in mind is that this article was published right around the time that the Survivor 2299 was confirmed to be fake, so people weren't so eager this time to jump aboard the hype train. Now, instead of having present-day me summarize the information, I will let the me from 2 years ago from videos that I made about the matter back then speak for himself. That way you can sort of get an idea for what my mentality was for this news at the time. Check it out. I think this video will lift your spirits after what happened with the Survivor 2299 fiasco. Website Kotaku has confirmed that Fallout 4 is not only in development, but also that the game setting is indeed Massachusetts and that the Institute will play a major role in this game. How do they know this, you ask? Apparently, a Kotaku reader sent in several documents from a casting call for a project codenamed The Institute, and the folks over at Kotaku have confirmed these documents to be real. As you guys can see, the documents are essentially pages of a script of sorts, and these were used for the casting call of this project. While only 2 of who knows how many pages were leaked, Kotaku does briefly state that some of the other documents describe missions within the Institute, which is essentially Fallout's post-apocalyptic version of MIT. These documents are also said to reference various locations within the Fallout lore that have been mentioned in previous Fallout games but were never accessible. Locations such as the Commonwealth, which is essentially a post-Great War Massachusetts. In other words, not only will players likely be exploring a post-apocalyptic version of Massachusetts, but also the mysterious organization known as the Institute, which is very exciting. Anyways, let's take a look at the 2 pages of the documents that Kotaku did release. The first page seems to be the introduction dialogue, as noted by the classic War. War never changes. But before we talk about the contents of the script, I would like to direct your attention to the image at the top. This could be our first glimpse at what Fallout 4's graphics will be like. More importantly, this man is likely the player character, since written below the image is a little blurb that says, "The player narrates the game's introduction." I find this rather strange, since the introductions for Fallout 1, 2, and 3 were all narrated by Ron Perlman. This time it seems as though whoever is voicing the player will be doing the honors. Speaking of which, what is up with the player character having a voice? Maybe Bethesda Softworks is trying to do something similar to what BioWare did with Mass Effect, which features a protagonist that is fully voiced despite the fact that players make dialogue choices and despite the fact that Shepard is fully customizable. Speaking of customization, for those worried that the image means the protagonist will have a defined look and will not be customizable, don't worry. According to Kotaku, there was both a male and a female version of the casting callback script, meaning customization is definitely not gone. Fallout 4 may be doing something similar to Mass Effect for customization as well. If you recall, Mass Effect featured a default version of what Commander Shepard looked like, and this default version was used for artworks, trailers, and ads, but in-game, players were given the freedom to customize the character. But if you think about it, this is nothing new. Bethesda Softworks did this with Dovahkiin for their previous project, Skyrim, who was given a sort of default appearance for the game's artworks, trailers, and ads, but in-game, the player was given full freedom to customize the character's race, gender, and appearance. This image could be showing us the male default version of the protagonist, and perhaps it's this individual who we'll see in arts, trailers, advertisements, etc. for Fallout 4. Anyways, let's talk a bit about the contents of the first page. According to the script, the game's introduction begins in an interior, with the player speaking to a small room of a few people from a podium, lights low, with a film projector running. Through this film projector, images are shown of a world as it was in the days before the nuclear war, followed by images of the world in decline and international conflict on the horizon, and then ending with images showing the horror of a full-scale nuclear exchange and a world forever changed for those who survived. In a grave tone, the script reads as follows. War never changes. In the year 1945, my great-great-grandfather serving in the army, wondered when he'd get to go home to his wife and the son he'd never seen. He got his wish when the US ended World War II by dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The world awaited Armageddon. Instead, something miraculous happened. We began to use atomic energy not as a weapon, but as a nearly limitless source of power. People enjoyed luxuries once thought the realm of science fiction. But then, in the 21st century, people awoke from the American dream. Years of consumption led to shortages of every major resource. The entire world unraveled. We now stand on the brink of total war, and I am afraid. For myself, for my wife, for my infant son. Because if my time in the army has taught me one thing, it's that war never changes. The speech is clearly being given either shortly before or during the Great War, so the protagonist is likely a survivor of the catastrophic event. At first I thought this could mean that Fallout 4 may take place closer to the Great War than any other Fallout game, but according to Kotaku, the casting calls for both male and female versions of the protagonist note that the player begins the game by waking up from cryogenic sleep. In other words, it's likely been a very long time since the speech was given. Unfortunately, there is no mention of a specific year. Now, let's take a look at the second page, which seems to be a script for one of the missions. It describes a scene in which players meet a group of battle-weary mercenaries. It takes place inside a small upstairs room of an abandoned museum. Several soldiers lean against the wall or sit crumpled in a corner. The situation is that the player has fought his way into the museum and reached what functions as a small redoubt for the mercenaries. Unfortunately, raiders have surrounded the building and are attempting to gain entrance. The mercenaries' leader, Preston Garvey, approaches the player, and the conversation begins.
Man, I don't know who you are, but your timing is impeccable. Preston Garvey, Commonwealth Minutemen. So who are these people, and what can I do to help? Just folks looking for a new home, a fresh start. I've been with them since Quincy. Lexington looked good for a while, but raiders drove us out of there. As for getting us out of this mess, we do have one idea. One good idea can make all the difference. There's a crashed chopper up on the roof of this place. If you could find a way up there and get the fusion core out of the battery compartment, we could power up our weapons and maybe just make it out of this place alive. That sounds like a suicide mission. The answer is no, I'm out. Well, if you've got a better plan, then let's hear it. Museums need a lot of power, right? That means an on-site fusion grid. I bet there's a fusion core in this very building. You'll have to cover me from here and I'll need one of those rifles. Well, alright. Maybe our luck's finally turning around. But when this thing's over, I keep the toys. The rifle and the fusion core. Wish me luck.
This second page clearly describes what could be a quest of sorts. I find it interesting that the script is so linear. Usually in a Fallout game, players are given various choices for dialogue, but here everything's very defined. But then again, this is a callback script, so it's likely just one version of how the conversation could turn out. Anyways, note that Preston Garvey is a Commonwealth Minuteman, which is further indication that Massachusetts is the setting for the next Fallout game. If that's not enough, notice how he mentions Quincy and Lexington, which are all real locations within Massachusetts. If this script is indeed real, as Kotaku claims with great confidence, then hell, there's no denying it. Fallout 4 will take place in Boston, Massachusetts, the Institute will be a huge part of the story, and the player character will wake up from cryogenic sleep decades after the Great War. Sounds like a great recipe for a great Fallout game so far. Finally, Kotaku reveals that some of the pages of the documents describe other characters who may appear in Fallout 4, including a radio DJ named Travis Miles and an engineer named Sturgis, the latter apparently being a cross between Buddy Holly and Vin Diesel, according to the documents. Interesting description. Now, one thing to keep in mind about these leaked documents is that they are preliminary scripts strictly designed for casting. In other words, some of these story details could drastically change by the time the game is finalized and released, but these documents, if we are to trust Kotaku that they are 100% legitimate, certainly do give us a glimpse at the general direction that the next Fallout game is headed for. The big takeaway from this, though, is that Fallout 4 is definitely in production, the player character may be fully voiced, the Institute will play a significant role in the story, and Massachusetts is pretty much confirmed as the main setting of Fallout 4. And with that, I would like to conclude this news update, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. So as many of you may know, Kotaku recently released 2 pages of leaked documents that were used in a casting call of sorts for a project codenamed The Institute, which is more likely than not Fallout 4. A lot of you, however, have expressed doubt over the legitimacy of these documents. The author of the article is a man named Jason Schreier, and he actually took it upon himself to go to Reddit to try to answer some questions and to hopefully convince people that the documents that Kotaku has procured are indeed legitimate. So here's what Jason Schreier had to say about the leaked documents. Hi, I'm the Kotaku writer. Hopefully this post doesn't get buried. Part of the confirmation was off the record, meaning I can't publicize that information, but let me try to be as clear as possible without violating that. Person number 1 sent me these documents. I talked to a number of other sources who told me a few bits and pieces that seemed to match up, but nothing concrete. Then person number 2, someone I trust and someone who has nothing to do with person number 1, was able to corroborate the information in the original documents, helping me confirm that yes, these are real casting papers and part of a real casting call. We work very hard at Kotaku to be accurate when we break news, and we've been able to do a lot of hard reporting this year on everything from next-gen consoles to the fall of LucasArts to info on games like Titanfall and Aliens Isolation before they were even announced. The second one is still to come. I think we have a decent track record. Let me know if anyone has any other questions or concerns. Jason then proceeded by providing proof of their track record, by giving links to articles that predicted things like the Xbox One exclusive Titanfall and its features before the game's announcement, things like specs and features for both Xbox One and PlayStation 4 before they were unveiled, and things like the fact that Grand Theft Auto 5 would feature multiple protagonists, all before the feature was unveiled to the public earlier this year. And one more that I would like to add is the fact that Kotaku was one of the few sources to actually flat out say that the Survivor2299.com website is likely a hoax, and the article was written by Jason himself. But whether you trust Kotaku or not, well, that's up to you. Moving on, let's talk about the interesting coincidence of how these documents were leaked by Kotaku on the same date that the Survivor2299.com's countdown was supposed to end, December 11th. This coincidence, and the fact that both sources talk about Massachusetts, the Institute, etc., has led many to believe that the website and the leak are somehow related. While nobody flat out asks about this strange coincidence, Jason does state that the reason he waited until this date was to make sure that the Survivor 2299 was actually a hoax, as if the fact that the website outed itself wasn't enough. By the time December 11th came, nothing really happened, meaning by then, the website could truly be confirmed to be fake, making it safe for Jason to release the article. Another coincidence is that the information from both the website and the documents match up quite nicely, with both sources talking about Massachusetts, the Institute, etc., which has led some to believe that perhaps the man behind the Survivor 2299, whose Reddit name was revealed to be DC Hoaxer, had access to the documents, and that somehow this entire thing could be a collaboration of sorts between Kotaku and DC Hoaxer. But on the same post, Jason states that he has no knowledge of DC Hoaxer having access to the documents, and that the reason the Survivor 2299's information matched up so well with information revealed through these documents is for the simple fact that rumors about Boston and Massachusetts and the Institute have been going around for years now. In fact, DC Hoaxer himself confirmed that all the hidden messages that he transmitted about Massachusetts and the Institute were all created by him, and that the messages themselves all came from a Fallout fanfiction that he had written a few months ago, and not from some leaked documents. To further corroborate the legitimacy of his article, Jason says that he spent a couple of weeks making sure that these documents were real, meaning he's had these documents in hand for a while now. So another reason for the December 11th release date of the article is the fact that a good portion of his time before the date was spent making sure that the documents were indeed legitimate. One final coincidence I would like to address is the new update on website thesurvivor2299.com, which now simply shows the date December 27th, 2013. Some people find it weird that the website has updated soon after Kotaku released the leaked documents, and believe this coincidence to be further indication of some kind of collaboration between thesurvivor2299.com and Kotaku, and that maybe something really will happen on the 27th. But that is likely not the case, and here's why. For those who don't know, DC Hoaxer actually went to Reddit to answer a few questions about the hoax, which is where he talked about how he made Morse code messages and ciphers from the fan fiction that he had written. Something else that he answered was what was supposed to happen if the countdown reached its intended date. He said that the intention was to release a CGI trailer that he himself made, but unfortunately before then, Pete Hines from Bethesda had actually reached out to DC Hoaxer via email about this entire ordeal, which is why the website was shut down early. The contents of the email were not revealed, but based on what DC Hoaxer said, Bethesda wasn't very happy with what DC Hoaxer was doing, whose intention with this hoax was to bring the Fallout community together and hopefully force Bethesda to show something off at VGX or on December 11th. As we know by now, that plan failed, but a brave effort nonetheless. Anyways, back to the CGI trailer. Its intended release date was December 11th, but now that the website outed itself, a lot of people on Reddit have been asking when we'll get to see it. His answer was that he'll release it sometime after December 11th, since he didn't want to piss off Bethesda anymore. So now that December 11th has passed, put 2 and 2 together and you'll realize that December 27th is likely the date in which DC Hoaxer will release his custom-made CGI trailer. If you were to ask me for my opinion, I would say with confidence that the documents are indeed legitimate, although they are likely preliminary and intended solely for the purpose of casting. And again, for those wondering why the article was released on December 11th, Jason says he wanted to wait until the Survivor2299.com was 100% confirmed as fake, and also weeks were spent on ensuring the legitimacy of the documents. As for the recent update on the Survivor2299.com, the December 27th date is likely when DC Hoaxer will be releasing his custom-made CGI trailer. So there you have it, folks. If we are to believe Jason, then there seems to be some good explanations in regards to some of these coincidences, and everything seems to point to the documents being real. But again, this entire news update works around the basis that Jason is telling the entire truth. So that about sums up everything you need to know about Kotaku's leaked documents. As we know by now, the documents were indeed real. The player character shown in the script is the exact model shown in Fallout 4 footage. The script hints at the possibility of seeing snippets of the pre-Great War era, which turned out to be the case. Another script hints at a character called Preston Garvey, a member of the mercenary outfit called the Commonwealth Minutemen, who resides in the upper floor of an abandoned museum that is being raided by raiders, all of which is shown in recent Fallout 4 footage. And within this footage, he even uses very similar lines to the ones found in the casting call script.
Man, I don't know who you are, but your timing's impeccable. Preston Garvey. As you can see, we're in a bit of a mess here.
I'll help if I can.
Well, we do have one idea.
There is also mention of a crashed chopper on the roof, which we got to see in the footage. And of course, there's the whole thing about cryogenic sleep, which goes in line with the fact that the protagonist wakes up 200 years later looking the same age as his pre-Great War self. We didn't know it back then, but the fact of the matter is that Kotaku's article marked the first and only true legit leak for Fallout 4. With that, I would like to end Day 14 of the Fallout 4 Countdown Retrospective. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts were about the leaked scripts when Kotaku published the article. And to be further updated on Fallout 4, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.